So today I am back to doing reviews for The Mandalorian after what was the Book of Boba Fett, of course. This is, of course, my review for episode 1 of season 3 of The Mandalorian called The Apostate. Now, before I really dive into the episode, I just want to say that when season 3 was about to come out, the hype for it, at least for me, but also for other people, wasn't as big as it was for seasons 1 and 2. I remember that seasons 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian were hyped up a lot, but I think that a lot of people, including myself, didn't really like the Book of Boba Fett, and therefore we weren't necessarily looking forward all that much to The Mandalorian Season 3. I did think, on the one hand, that, well, it can't be much worse than the Book of Boba Fett. We're going back to The Mandalorian, characters that I do like, and a storyline that I would care about, if I had any idea what the storyline would be about. Because when the season was about to come out, I was like, what are they going to explore with this season? And they explore a couple of things, that's for sure, and I'm going to, of course, dive into that, but not all of it really works. And, well, that is even after a couple of rewatches, and now also having just rewatched the episode, I'm like, yeah, a couple of things work and a couple of things don't, and I kind of feel mixed about the season overall. So let's just dive into episode 1 right now. So the episode actually starts with the group of Mandalorians that are now with the armor and Paz Vizsla. They seem to have settled on a planet, and it was actually nice to see this as the opening sequence because it shows more of the Mandalorian culture, and that is a storyline that I really like about this season. That is definitely one thing that actually should have been done from the very get-go of The Mandalorian, considering it's called The Mandalorian, and diving into the overall culture is probably the most interesting thing about them. But of course, the first couple of seasons more focused on Din himself and only sprinkled in some nuggets of Mandalorian culture. And now this season really dives into that. So that is definitely a step in the right direction, something I did like. However, on this planet, it's a dangerous planet. There are a lot of big, scary monsters, and already in this opening sequence, one scary monster reveals itself, and they seem to have a lot of trouble dealing with it until Din and Grogu come in to save the day. So, like, yay, he's back, it's all good now. No. Also, for the people who have missed the Book of Boba Fett at this point, I cannot even imagine how it would be to watch this episode, not having seen the Book of Boba Fett, being like, wait, what is that ship that Din is flying? Why is Grogu there? What issue is there with Din having taken off his helmet? Where was this? Yeah, that's all in the Book of Boba Fett. If you missed that, you just missed that. And there's nothing I can do to help you in that regard. As I said in my Book of Boba Fett reviews, I have tried to warn as many people about the fact that they need to watch those episodes to follow that storyline, but it's still insane to me that they continue the storyline of The Mandalorian in a different show. Okay, I am sorry for mentioning that one more time. Let's just make that the last time that I ever mention that, and now just continue with the rest of the episode, because Din needs to now redeem himself for taking off his helmet. I am honestly at this point a bit annoyed by the fact that they are so zealous about it, this particular group, especially considering that later in the season it's completely fine after Bo Katan takes off her helmet. But anyway, he needs to redeem himself. He needs to go to Mandalore, so he doesn't go to Mandalore. He goes to Nevarro. He actually has some side steps before he actually goes to Mandalore. I don't fully understand why he can't just go there, but it's what it is. He goes to Nevarro first. And on the way to Nevarro, there's one very nice Easter egg when Grogu is looking out the window and he sees the Purrgil traveling through hyperspace next to them. Especially now that we've seen Ahsoka, I really like this, and that's something that I did not expect for myself after Rebels, because the first episode that we see the Purrgil in Rebels in season 2, I really didn't like that episode. I didn't care for the Purrgil whatsoever. I was also not the biggest fan of their inclusion in the final episode of Rebels. And now that they have been used more, also the way they are used in Ahsoka, I'm like, yeah, no, I've really come around to their existence, and it's actually cool to see them here. So yeah, nice little nugget. So Din goes to Nevarro to visit his old friend Greef Karga. He is not visiting his old friend Cara Dune because she's been written out of the story at this point, of course. in fairness, I already said this before, that it was kind of a clever way to write her out of it. There was a way to write her out of it that made sense with what was set up earlier, so that's cool. And Nevarro has changed a lot, and it has changed so much that there are pirates now. Why are there pirates? Because they needed to fill up some storyline in this season to make sure that something is happening. I mean, eventually, of course, it is kind of an excuse for the Mandalorians to be on Nevarro. I suppose it's also kind of a setup for a skeleton crew. It's easily my least favorite storyline of the season. The pirates are like, they're there, I suppose, and they are an issue for Nevarro, I suppose. But every single time that I see their leader, Gorian Shard, I just think of Pizza the Hut from Spaceballs. It's a complete joke. It's one of the most campy, ridiculous things that Star Wars has ever done. And there will be people who will say, oh, but it's campy, ridiculous stuff. We see that all the time in Star Wars. I'm like, okay, but this is next level. This is more insane than some of the stuff that Star Wars has done. And I'm aware that Star Wars has done a lot of stuff. And to be fair, I'm not on board with all of it. There is a lot of campy, stupid stuff that I don't care for. Yeah, this is one of them. And this is definitely something that I'm like, skip. The good part about the Nevarro storyline, though, is the return of IG-11. At least in the capacity that he does return. Of course, it's not much fun when he tries to kill Grogu. But then when he eventually returns and that Grogu is able to ride him... That sounds really wrong, by the way. You know what I mean. But, like, that's a fun part. And then also the return of the Anzellans. Because I didn't care much for The Rise of Skywalker. A lot of people didn't. If you do, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to judge you for liking The Rise of Skywalker. I just personally wasn't a fan of the movie. But I was a fan of Babu Frick in it. And I think a lot of people can agree with me on that. That Babu Frick was probably one of the highlights of The Rise of Skywalker. So they return his species in this show with the Anzellans. And I really like their inclusion because I think they're just a very fun dynamic. They remind me a lot of these aliens in Men in Black. If you see Men in Black, I hope you know what I'm talking about. So eventually, Din pays a visit to his old friend, Bo Katan, who is now taking up space on a castle on a planet in the Mandalore system, just a different planet there. And apparently, Bo Katan has lost her following because she didn't get the Darksaber. What I do find weird about that is she had two people with her when we first saw her in Season 2, Episode 3, with Axe Wolves and Casca. Then she didn't have the Darksaber then. A couple of episodes later, we see her again just with Casca, not Axe Wolves. She didn't have the Darksaber then. And now she's alone, and now Casca also seems to have left, and she still doesn't have the Darksaber. Why did they follow her in the first place? You know what I also find really annoying? The fact that they just explain it away with this one little sentence. I'm like, couldn't you do like flashback sequences of what happened there? I think that would have been way more interesting to explore than this pirate storyline or other storylines that we've seen. But no, apparently this little bit of explanation right here is the only thing that is needed. Okay, sure. But yeah, in the end, Bo Katan refuses to help Din out and is like, you can go on your way, so he does, and there is where the episode ends. And yeah, I'm just reminded that this is an episode of Season 3 of The Mandalorian, where there are elements that I do like and elements that I don't, and in the end I just feel a bit mixed about it, where it's like, yeah, you know, there are certain things that I will want to figure out and what make me keep watching the show, but there are other elements that I could do without, and where I'm just like, you know, could we do something different? But hey, I already know the outcome. I already know that there are certain episodes that I really don't like. There are episodes I like in this season, at least episode 7 I know I really liked. But yeah, you know, we'll get there when we get there. Right now, I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on it? Are you one of the fans of Mandalorian Season 3? I've seen people that actually really like Season 3 of The Mandalorian. If you are one of them, tell me why. Tell me if you think I might be wrong on some of the things that I've said. Let me know in the comments below. Please leave a like on my video if you did, and subscribe to my channel for more Star Wars content. And of course, until my next video, may the Force be with you.